Good morning! In honor of Alcohol Week this week on MSTHK, me and my shot of water here are going to tell you a little story that I like to call Kitty's Quest for Good Beer in a Foreign Land.
Mega sexy robot party, everybody's disco dancing. Mega sexy robot party, everybody's disco dancing.
So I was in Milan last October, as in Milan, Italy, as in had to fly a really long time and then get on a different plane and everything to go to a land where I don't speak the language, but I was there for work, which is okay, and it was kind of cool because then I didn't have to pay for the really long flight to go to a place where I don't speak the language. I'm there for work, which also means that any sort of socializing that I'm doing is in hotel bars with salespeople. Some of them were very nice salespeople, but you don't really get to see Milan that way, especially since the hotel that we were staying in wasn't really in Milan, it was sort of in a suburb of Milan. For those of you from Chicago, it'd be like you'd be staying in Skokie. Who wants to stay in Skokie? So I had one day at the very end of my trip that I got to just sort of walk around Milan by myself and see stuff. But as I'm walking around, I went from my hotel to go get lunch, and I saw a comic book store along the way, and I had to buy a Green Lantern in Italian for my best friend, and I bought Bone in Italian for me, even though neither of us speak a lick of Italian. But it seemed like the cool thing to do. On my way, between the comic book store and the restaurant that I was going to get some lunch, I saw this pub that had a sign for delirium tremens in the window. Now, I'm a complete sucker for delirium tremens. I don't know exactly why. It has a very unique flavor and an extremely high alcohol content, so it probably shouldn't be my favorite beer, but I do love the delirium tremens. So I see a sign for delirium tremens in the window of this pub, and I'm like, I'm coming back here tonight and I'm gonna have myself a beer in a pub in Milan. Keep in mind also, at this point in time in my life, I was not in a very good place emotionally, and my best friend in Texas sort of made me promise to do something nice for myself while I was over there. She was like, maybe this trip to Milan can be a good thing and you can just sort of get away from all the crap that's been bugging you and sort of reset whatever. So this was not only like a sit back, relax, have a beer. This was a psychological mission that I had to go and have this beer while I'm in Milan by myself. So I finished out the rest of my day, and about 9:30 at night, something like that, I decided I'm gonna venture back out to this pub. I was able to find it very easily, and Milan is a no smoking city, as in you can't smoke inside, but they don't have the 15-foot rule that we have here in Chicago where you can't smoke within 15 feet of the door. So I find this bar, and there's some like football hooligan looking guys standing right smack in front of the door, and I speak no Italian, but I'm just like, scusi, and point at the door, and they part like the Red Sea and let me enter. The entire bar was painted white, which is odd. In Chicago, we like our bars dark and dank, probably a little bit dirty. Anything that's painted white turns gray within about 4 minutes. But this entire bar was painted white, and there were two bartenders, one of whom looked a bit like David Tennant. The other was also tall and skinny and dark-haired and cute, except he had a rat tail, which lowered his cuteness by about 6 points on the cuteness scale. And then there was a waitress, because there was also a restaurant in the back of this place. So I walk in and I see the three of them, and the cute one that looks like David Tennant looks at me and goes, "Prego," which, as far as I'm concerned, is all any Italian ever says. That's like 90% of the language. Prego can mean anything and everything that you possibly wanted to. That's pretty much all anybody said to me while I was there, except for the people that came and asked me for directions, because obviously I look so Italian. So he says, "Prego," and I point at the tap and I say, "Delirium tremens," and the waitress goes, "Finito." They saw my face melt. They completely saw my face melt. At this point, I didn't know what to do. I was debating whether or not I should have even gone out in the first place, but I knew that I had to because I had promised my best friend that I would do something nice for myself. But here I was in a bar and I was going to be disappointed. And sure, I could have tried the beer out there called Tennant, because they have a beer in Milan called Tennant, but I looked it up online afterwards and apparently it's a crap beer. I'm looking at the other taps and I don't recognize anything, and I remember that I have a translator app on my phone. I'm like, I can ask for a beer recommendation, but I'm not going to know what they're going to say back to me. This was the last thing in the world that I wanted to have happen at that moment, because I had so psyched myself up and put so much pressure on having this one beer in a pub in Milan, this was going to psychologically reset me so that I could come back to my life and be normal. And they didn't have it. The sign in the window said they had it, but the waitress said, finito. And they watched my face melt. But then, cute bartender who kind of looked like David Tennant goes, yeah, bottle? And I'm like, yes, bottle. They have it in bottle form. Delirium tremens in a bottle is just as lovely as delirium tremens on tap. So he goes like, skipping off into the back room to get me a bottle of delirium tremens, and he's so proud of himself that he knew how to say the word bottle in English. And he comes back and he pours it in a glass, but it wasn't a very good pour. It was like that much head, that much beer. So there's still a little bit left, and he's trying to like indicate to me that there's still a little bit left in the bottle, so I should take the bottle with me. I was pleased, I was relaxed, I was chill, I was proud of myself that I got myself a beer in a pub in Milan, and I sat down, and by now the hooligan guys had come back in and they were sitting at a table because there was a football match on. But I just sat over on the side next to the white painted walls and drank my beer and realized that I wasn't going to chat with anybody in there because they didn't speak English and I didn't speak Italian. But I had my beer. I had my beer in a pub in Milan. Cilantro. What, it's 7 o'clock in the morning and I have to go to work.